What if two men could hold an entire nation's economy hostage? In 1869, a pair of audacious speculators decided to find out. They gambled that they could corner the entire gold supply of the United States, and in doing so, they triggered a catastrophe that would be remembered for a century as Black Friday. Long before the name meant holiday shopping, Black Friday was a day of financial ruin. On September 24, 1869, the United States gold market imploded, not by accident, but by design. It was a scheme engineered by two of Wall Street's most audacious figures, a plot that reached all the way to the White House. To understand how they almost succeeded, and how their failure scarred the nation, is to understand the timeless dance between greed, power, and the global financial system. Our story begins in the Gilded Age, a time of explosive growth and rampant corruption following the American Civil War. The nation was rebuilding, and on Wall Street, fortunes were being forged overnight. In the center of this financial vortex were two men. Gould, the silent plotter, a man whose mind was a labyrinth of schemes, and his partner, James Fisk, the flamboyant showman, a robber baron with a flair for the dramatic. Together, they controlled the Erie Railroad, and they were hungry for more. They saw a nation struggling with its currency, a paper dollar called the greenback, whose value was tied to the government's supply of gold. After the Civil War, the United States government had issued hundreds of millions of dollars in greenbacks to finance the war. These were not backed by gold, and their value fluctuated wildly. To stabilize the economy, the government held $100 million in gold reserves. It would periodically sell some of this gold to buy back greenbacks, which kept the price of gold from rising too high. This policy was the bedrock of the nation's financial stability. But Gould and Fisk saw it not as a safeguard, but as a cage. They believed that if the government stopped selling gold, its price would soar. This would make American farm goods cheaper overseas, boosting exports, increasing railroad traffic, and swelling the profits of the Erie Railroad. The entire plan hinged on one thing: stopping the government from selling gold. Gould and Fisk needed influence at the highest level. They found their way in through Abel Corbin, a well-connected lobbyist who was married to the sister of President Ulysses S. Grant. They showered Corbin with favors and a share in their gold venture. Through him, they met the president himself, arguing their case that a high gold price would help the American farmer. Grant was a war hero, but a political novice, and he appeared to listen. Believing they had the president in their pocket, Gould and Fisk began their assault. They started quietly buying up every ounce of gold they could find in New York City. Through a network of brokers, they amassed contracts for tens of millions of dollars in gold. The price began to climb, from $130 an ounce to $140, then $145. Wall Street was buzzing with rumors. No one knew who was behind the buying, but everyone could feel the pressure building. By the morning of Friday, September 24, 1869, the trap was set. Gould and Fisk had driven the price of gold to $160 an ounce. The gold room in New York was a scene of pure pandemonium. Men were screaming, climbing over furniture, desperate to buy gold before the price went even higher. Businesses that needed gold to pay for international trade or debts were facing bankruptcy. The entire financial system was grinding to a halt. But President Grant was not the fool they had taken him for. Alerted to the national panic and the suspicious role of his own brother-in-law, he acted decisively. He sent a simple telegram to the Treasury Secretary in New York: "Sell 4 million gold tomorrow," and buy 4 million bonds. The message was delivered to Wall Street. The moment the news broke, the bubble burst. The price of gold collapsed in minutes, plummeting from 160 back to 133. The speculators were ruined. Fortunes were wiped out in an instant. The day was forever christened Black Friday. Gould and Fisk, however, slipped through the chaos, using their political connections and legal firepower to default on their losing trades, leaving a trail of bankruptcies in their wake. The story of Black Friday 1869 is more than a historical curiosity. It is a stark reminder of the dangers that still lurk in our financial markets. First, it shows how concentrated wealth can be used to manipulate markets for personal gain, creating systemic risks that affect everyone. We see echoes of this in modern schemes, from the Libor scandal to the manipulation of cryptocurrency markets. Second, it demonstrates the critical importance of government regulation and intervention. Grant's decision to release government gold was the only thing that stopped a complete economic meltdown, highlighting the role of central banks and regulators as a necessary check on unchecked speculation. Finally, It reveals how quickly financial euphoria can turn into panic, a lesson we have had to relearn time and again, from the crash of 1929 to the financial crisis of 2008. Greed on a grand scale is a force of nature, capable of building empires and bringing them to ruin. The game has changed, but the players have not. If you enjoy stories where finance, power, and history collide, subscribe. We are going even deeper next.